If you had seen me at my lowest, you wouldn't have recognized me. And if I'm honest, neither would I. There are nights that still come back to me, echoes in the dark, when every breath felt like a gamble. When the possibility that tomorrow might never arrive was both a terror and a relief. And this is not just my story. It could just as easily be yours, your friends, your child's, or the stranger sitting next to you. I stand here not as a hero, not as an inspiration sculpted by easy victories, but as living proof that darkness is real, and so is the light that can follow. I want you to feel that truth in every word. My story isn't glamorous, and it's certainly not clean. Addiction and chronic illness ravaged my life, stealing years, stealing hope, gnawing at the bones of even my strongest days. I walked through hell, not because I was special, but because I had nowhere else to go. And I survived, which is perhaps the most ordinary miracle of all. Today, I share these memories not as confessions or boasts, but as open hands. Because maybe, as I speak, you'll find a little piece of yourself, one that aches for transformation, one that's still longing for the sun. Let me take you back to that first moment I felt the world slipping away, when pain became a companion, and I started to believe I deserved it. I promise you this is not a story drenched in sorrow, nor a fairy tale of instant redemption. It's the truth, with all its broken edges, and it is possible. As I share my journey through suffering, addiction, and illness, and out the other side, I hope you'll hold on to something. Even when all the windows close, there's a door somewhere. I found mine, and I hope you find yours. My descent began quietly, almost elegantly. There was no dramatic thunderclap, no fiery crash. Just a slow, persistent leak of light from my days. It started with a loss, the sudden death of someone I loved more than words allow. Everything stable inside me fractured. I could taste grief in my mouth. It had a metallic, unshakable presence. Nights stretched on, each one darker, and I was alone with thoughts that chewed and tormented. At first, it was a drink to soften the edges. Then, a pill to silence the panic. The panic that followed me from the moment I woke up to when I couldn't sleep at all. My hands shook. My heart hurt. My mind began to turn against me, spinning stories of worthlessness. What began as a search for comfort quickly became a fortress of solitude, one that trapped me instead of protecting me. Trauma laid the kindling for this fire. Losing my job in what felt like a single cruel breath. The phone call telling me my father had died. The friend who simply stopped calling when darkness got too heavy. Sometimes, trauma doesn't scream. It just gently, persistently erases your name from every good thing. Life outside began to mirror the storm inside. Missed job interviews. Unanswered messages. I starved myself of connection, believing I was too broken for company. I watched invitations dry up, birthdays passed without a call, and eventually, my own reflection became a stranger. Anxiety was a drumbeat inside me. Depression a fog that settled and would not clear. Fear became my shadow. I remember lying in bed, fully awake at 3 a.m., bargaining for one night of dreamless sleep. Every day, the war inside took new forms, paranoia, shame, guilt so heavy it pressed me flat. Scene by scene, life slipped out of my grasp. I remember my sister's wedding, supposed to be a day of joy. I was there, but not there. I had taken enough pills to fake a smile, enough drinks to dance with a hollow grin. I don't remember much except the colors of the flowers and the way people glanced at me, whispering, worried. I left early and didn't even say goodbye. Blackouts became routine. I once woke up in a hospital, needle in my arm, the antiseptic stinging my nose, with no recollection how I'd gotten there. A nurse leaned over me, her face kind but tired. "You're lucky," she said. "Most people don't get another chance." I couldn't decide if that was a blessing or a curse. Relationships turned to ruins. My best friend begged me one night, "Let me help you. Please." He didn't understand that his light only amplified my darkness. I pushed him away. That's what shame does. It feels contagious. I wish I could tell you that my darkest days had a soundtrack, a narrator, a warning bell. But mostly they were silent, a suffocating, relentless absence. My mind was a maze, my body a battleground. And every day, I lost a little more. There's a taste to self-destruction. Metallic, bitter, like chewing tinfoil. Sometimes I'd stare at my hands, watching them tremble, and it felt like someone else's body. I began to feel numb to everything except pain. On cold mornings, my whole body ached, the kind of pain that isn't just physical, but seeps into the spirit. Dialogue is hard to recall in full. Mostly, it was my own voice, echoing lies. "You're too weak. You'll lose everyone. You deserve this." When I did hear from people, their words slid off me like rain, never enough to soak in. Illness set in, physical and mental. Migraines, fatigue, stomach problems. The doctor said autoimmune, but it felt like my soul was attacking itself. Sometimes, curled up on the bathroom floor, I wondered if this was what I was born for, to hurt, to fade, to vanish. As I recount these shadows, I want you to know, there's no glamour here. Only raw, unblinking truth. It was a winter morning, pale light filtering through grimy curtains, when everything changed. I had been awake for 36 hours. My skin felt prickly, my thoughts rushed in frantic circles. I hadn't eaten or showered. There were pills on the nightstand, a careless litter. I remember staring into the mirror, eyes bloodshot, lips cracked, hair wild, and realizing I had absolutely no idea who I was. "It's over," I muttered to the reflection. "You're not coming back from this." My phone buzzed. I ignored it. The world deserved nothing more from me. But then came a memory, my mother's voice when I was 5, singing me to sleep, her hand warm on my head. I burst into tears so sudden, so violent, it rocked my body. It was uncontrollable, the grief, the regret, the anger. It was as if all my defenses fell away at once, and I was left with only one thing, the naked, raw desire to live. Even if it hurt. Even if I didn't know how. I crawled from the bedroom to the living room, muscles shaking, sobbing softly. Sunlight barely touched the floor. For the first time in months, I wanted more. More than numbness. More than survival. I wanted to feel, to hope, to try. In that fragile moment, something shifted. Hope didn't flood in, it dripped, slow and cautious. But it was there, a tiny, shivering pulse. I reached for my phone, hands unsteady, and dialed the only person who might answer. My sister. The line rang, and as her voice answered, I began to admit the truth. I need help. I can't do it alone. That mirror moment was not glorious. It was ugly, desperate, and full of shame. But it was the first honest thing I had done in a very long time. There's a line movies tell you, that recovery starts with a single brave leap, and the rest is uphill sunshine. That wasn't my experience. Recovery was 1,000 small steps, each one harder than the last, each one punctuated by stumbles, setbacks, and the temptation to return to old ways. My first step was rehab. Give yourself a chance, my sister whispered as she drove me there, tears in her eyes. I clung to her words. The facility wasn't some leafy retreat. It was a concrete building that smelled of antiseptic and fear. The first week was hell, nights sweating through sheets, nausea, nerves on high alert. Voices in group meetings quivered just like mine. "What are you most afraid of?" the counselor asked on my third day. that I'm broken beyond repair. I whispered, "We all are, until we realize we aren't." Those words burrowed deep. I listened to stories of addicts, of survivors, people fighting demons older and meaner than mine. They wept, laughed, sometimes screamed. It was messy, unpredictable, and exactly what I needed. After rehab came therapy. My therapist was soft-spoken but unrelenting. She dissected my lies, my self-loathing, the childhood wounds that never healed. Some sessions were so raw I could barely stand up afterward. I found faith, not the kind preached from pulpits, but a quiet conviction. Sometimes I prayed, sometimes I wrote angry letters to the universe, and sometimes I just sat in silence, hoping some presence would sit with me. My family became my backbone. My sister checked in every morning. My mother cooked nourishing meals. Friends who hadn't given up reached out. Some strangers, support group members, became closer than kin. But not every relationship survived. Some friends faded. Others grew distant, and I learned this was natural. Recovery requires boundaries, not just with substances, but with people who don't want you to heal. There were relapses. Nights when the urge to obliterate pain won out. Mornings when shame felt like a shroud. Each time, I returned to the basics. Therapy, meetings, journaling, apologies to others and to myself. Doubt crept in. Am I just destined to fail? But every climb has slips, and slowly, I learned to see relapse not as the end, but as feedback. A reason to grow more fiercely. Healing hurt. My body shook as it purged toxins. My immune system rebelled, flare-ups, endless doctor's visits, fatigue so deep I thought I might dissolve. But gradually, I started stringing together small victories, a day sober, then 2, then a week. My mind, so used to panic and doom, began to settle. I relearned joy. I walked through parks, noting the way sunlight danced off leaves. I listened to music and felt it vibrate in my chest. I laughed, not forced, but genuine, and every laugh felt like an act of rebellion against my past. Honesty became my foundation. I learned to tell the truth, especially when it scared me. I began to journal daily, track my moods, set boundaries with people who triggered old habits. I built routines, early mornings, walks, gratitude lists, balanced meals. It all sounds simple, but together, these acts resurrected a person I thought was lost. Health returned slowly. My chronic illness didn't magically vanish, but I learned to live with it. Medication, rest, exercise, and above all, forgiveness for my own limitations. I remember the first time I spoke at a recovery meeting. My voice shook, but my story was heard. People lined up afterward to thank me, not as a hero, but as a fellow traveler. That's when I realized vulnerability can be power. I found mentors, men and women who had crawled through their own hells and stood whole on the other side. I devoured books, rediscovered art, volunteered at shelters. Each act of service stitched together the frayed edges of my soul. When I got my first job after recovery, a modest position at a local library, I cried in the break room, overwhelmed by gratitude and pride. Slowly, my life became a mosaic: hope, struggle, love, relapse, forgiveness, triumph. Today, I am alive, and not just in the technical sense. I am truly living. Mentally, I've learned to quiet the catastrophizing voice, to treat anxiety and depression as visitors, not dictators. Emotionally, my heart is open. I love fiercely my family, my old friends, new friends made in unexpected places. Spiritually, I find peace in silence, in simple prayers, in shared laughter. My faith is a quiet river, not a noisy storm. Physically, I'm not cured, but I am healthy. I exercise, I eat foods that heal. I listen to my body's warnings. My greatest pride is in helping others. I speak at recovery programs, mentor young people, and write about my journey. I have built something meaningful, a life I never dreamed possible. I have learned that suffering does not make you less worthy. That asking for help is a sign of courage, not weakness. That even on the darkest days, light waits, sometimes in the smallest cracks. If I could speak to my former self, the version on that bathroom floor, or curled up in a hospital bed, I would say, "You are not your worst moment. There is more waiting for you. Please stay. Reach out. Breathe again." I want you to know, transformation isn't a sudden explosion of joy, but a slow ignition, a warmth that grows, until finally it becomes a blazing, unstoppable force. You may be hurting. You may be broken, angry, numb. That is not the end of your story. Start with one small step, make a call. Open a window. Write a sentence. Ask for help. Every act of honesty is a match struck in the dark. Relapse is not failure. Setbacks are not death sentences. Healing is not linear, but every step forward matters. We are all diamonds shaped by pressure, polished by struggle. Though the night is long, the sun remembers how to rise. Scars are just places where wounds let the light in. If my story has taught me anything, it's this: the capacity to change, to rise, is built into all of us. No matter how deep your darkness, you can find your way out. At my lowest, I thought I was carved from pain and programmed for disaster. Today, I know better. I am evidence that brokenness is not a life sentence, but part of a larger, more beautiful design. If you are struggling, right now, tonight, please hear me. You are not alone. Reach for someone. Say the hard things. Ask for help. Start again, even if it hurts. The journey will be hard, but on the other side of agony is something fierce, something free. And that something is you. In the end, it all comes down to this truth, the heartbeat of my survival. There is always a way back. No matter how lost you feel, you are never beyond the reach of hope. Let's walk out of the darkness together. Your story isn't over. It's just beginning.